Hey everybody. Obviously been a couple weeks since I did any kind of video content, and last ones were skate park reviews. But I want to get back to some Slappy tutorials because I like doing them. I love skating curbs, and it's a lot of fun to just kind of share what has worked for me for Slappies. And so today I'm going to do backside Slappies, or just like a backside 50-50 Slappy style. And we're at one of my favorite curb spots today, and we're going to walk through how to get into slappies, how to grind them, how to approach the curb, the angle, foot placement, all of that stuff. And hopefully you're going to come away from this video maybe not necessarily having mastered slappies or anything like that, but at least some ideas in terms of things you can try to get yourself closer to doing them if you've never done them before, or maybe have some ideas for ways in which you can make yours better, because there's definitely a lot out there.
All right. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say that I am not claiming to be the master curb skater, slappy guy. You'll have to go to like Lance Mountain and John Lucero for that, but I'm just sharing what has worked for me, and maybe it'll give you some ideas on how to do it. There's still other videos out there on how to do backside slappies, and so I would encourage you to check those out as well if whatever I have to say doesn't really make sense or doesn't work for you. But with that said, I'm going to try to get into it with as much detail as possible.
All right, next I'm covering the angle at which I'm rolling into the slappy, and really it is very similar to a slappy cricket grind, and I have tutorials on that on this channel. But the one thing I would say is that the turn at the end, in order to straighten out, is obviously a lot harsher than a slappy crook, because with a slappy crook you're going to stay in this pointed angle, this like 45, not 45, but like a 25-30 degree angle. But when you're getting into a backside or even a frontside slappy grind, obviously you've got to straighten that out to be parallel to the curb itself. So what you're going to see here is that when I actually start hitting my trucks onto the curb, I'm really leaning hard on my toe side rail to basically kind of almost like do like a backside power slide into the curb. I'm not a surfer, although I have done it, and I have definitely snowboarded before. It's kind of like that motion where you're sort of slashing your back heel a bit back behind you and kind of flaring it out to get onto the curb. That's what you want to be doing. The biggest challenge I had in learning this trick was that I just wasn't able to flare my back truck and kind of like use all that pressure on my toe side rail to kind of kick it back behind me. And that's definitely something that you're going to want to learn how to do.
All right, so I'm going to put this in slightly more concrete terms in terms of getting onto a slappy. So as you're rolling at like that 30-degree angle or so, and you're coming up to the curb, obviously you're going to be putting pressure on your toe side rail. So I'm regular footed, but if you were goofy foot, this would be completely mirrored. You're putting pressure on there, but you're also kind of doing like a little bit of a manual to get back onto the curb, because frankly, while your front truck is probably going to hit the curb first, about 80% of the force and your body weight is going to be on that back truck, because you're going to want to think about it almost like you're doing a kick turn on the curb, where you're trying to get up on top of coping on a quarter pipe and do a pivot or a back 5-0. That's definitely what you're going for on a curb spot. So when we're riding up here, you're kind of like lifting up, and you might bash that front truck a little bit, but it's going to, as you're flaring that back foot with all that pressure on your toes and a lot of your body weight shifted to the back, you're going to notice how the board kind of naturally just wants to come right up onto the back, get that back truck up onto the curb and almost do like a backside slash grind or pivot. So that's what we're going for, is to do that body weight shift. And it's just going to take some practice to get used to kind of rolling up onto it and then getting into that back sort of pivot motion. And you can try to even play around with like backside feebles and stuff like that. I learned feebles or slappy feebles after I had learned backside slappy grinds, but maybe you'll find that feebles are easier for you. I just think that the feebles, and I'll probably do a tutorial on those as well at some point, they require a bit more of a pinch in that back pocket. But anyway, you know, that's kind of what there is to it. Now, when I'm actually ready to come off, it's pretty simple. You're just going to lift up your chest and sort of fall off it, or you can, you know, pop your tail and come off, or do some kind of shove it or kick flip out or something like that. But that's really that's not a hard part of doing backside slappy grinds. So now I'm going to actually demonstrate it a couple times from a few different angles, slow it down, and then wrap up this video. I've got a few things to wrap up with, a few closing thoughts on this. Obviously, you can see that a lot of it has to do with that back foot and the back toe. But a few questions there might be, like how fast you need to go. And I would say, honestly, you don't have to go that fast, just fast enough to kind of overcome the friction of grinding a curb. So no different than if you were trying to get up a quarter pipe or trying to go off a launch ramp or something like that. Pretty normal amount of speed. I'm not doing anything special. And but I will say, if you do go faster, you're going to be able to go farther on the slappy. It just gets maybe a little bit harder to control, but not too bad. The second thing I would say is that in terms of like shifting your body weight, you definitely want to be looking over your toes when you're trying to get on it. That I've noticed helps a lot versus just kind of like leaning back and trying to straighten up too quickly. You don't really want to straighten out your body until you're actually up on top of the curb and you've gotten into that slappy. Now, on some of these that I've done, I'm sure that my back wheel is either catching the ground of the curb or getting really close to it, and that just happens. You know, you can clean that up, skate a slightly taller curb, we'll take care of that, or just straighten out a little bit more. You know, I can certainly do that, but yeah, it's just not every one of them is going to be perfect. But I hope anyway that you kind of get a sense for how I'm doing these. But again, I would just really emphasize kind of slashing and flaring out that back foot, almost like you're doing a backside 5-0, or just carving really hard or power sliding really hard backside. Really helps a lot with slappy grinds. And so that would be my number one tip. I'm sure there are other people out there who have different ideas, but you know, again, I think it's mostly a back truck trick, and keeping like I said, about 80% of your weight over that back truck really will help a lot. So if there's any other questions you have about this trick, just drop them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them within a reasonable amount of time. And if you are bummed at the angle of my curb, well, tough luck. Find a new curb, I guess. But anyway, I appreciate you guys watching, and stay tuned for
maybe some more slappy videos. We'll see.